Hey, what's happening, guys? Cold Deep Black Ops Kid here, coming at you with another review. This is Cyberpunk 2077, one of the biggest games I've had the chance to review in a long time. We're going to be reviewing a lot of different things, but I do want to say, like, seizures and stuff like that. So I do want to warn people that are watching, if you have these types of problems, please, disclaimer, I guess. I don't know, but there's some pretty crazy things in this game, and I want to share my review and opinion with you guys. I feel like a lot of people share my opinion, as I've posted on some of my social medias, my thoughts about the game as I played. I did stream it. The whole streams are on YouTube, so check them out. I'll leave the whole playlist in the comment section. It took me 18 hours to complete the game, with some side quests in there as well, so it's not a very long game. And we did do 3 different endings, which in total I have about 30 hours of in-game time with this game. I've cranked a lot of hours very quickly, so enjoy Cyberpunk 2077. This review took a long time. I was going to make a skit, but with the time crunch, and I wanted everyone to know my thoughts about this game. We will be doing a complete completionist run here very shortly, with all the side quests, all the gigs that you can do on the side. There's, of course, it's a CD Projekt Red game. Tons and tons of side quests. To start you off, we'll show you guys some glitches, and then we'll start the review process. So guys, please enjoy this game. It's very good, but just watch the review, and I'll tell you guys my thoughts and opinions about the game.
Alt to draw a weapon, holstered to double tap. As a passenger, drawing your weapon allows you to lean you out the window.
Fucking drive, Jackie.
On-rail shooter section. No first-person shooter would have it without it. Easy. Out of the way, bitch. What the? Is that me? I'm doing something. Hold on. Oh. See? Easy.
Enough scanner. Displays data on your cornea. Cherry on the top's a built-in external lens disruptor. In layman's terms, any surveillance cam will capture your face as a blur. Just remember, you peruse and choose while I scan. Let's see what's going on inside.
Wait, what?
So, what's new in the life of Victor?
I'm a little off.
Yeah, if I'm being honest, not much. And that's fine with me. I used to live in a world where all that mattered. Lights out for a minute, all right?
And what happened?
One day I just got to the... Never... Okay, let's test this.
In mid-sentence. Hold on, let's
action.
stick the shit in your eye, bud.
Thing really.
Always going on.
Scanner should
and on.
eventually sync. Don't be mean now. Remember, I'm old. I got a shaky Gannic hand. Could slip. Lights out for a minute, all right? Run into any ne'er-do-well.
What the fuck?
You know exactly what they ne'er-do well.
What is going on? Oh, what the fuck? The game just crashed? Oh no. Oh no! I fucking glitched the game. It won't start anymore. What is happening, guys? And welcome to the Cyberpunk 2077 review. And today you can start off as three different starting. You start off the game by having 3 different choices between being a street kid, nomad, or corpo. Now, a lot of people, probably 80% of people, chose the street kid, and that's what I'm going to be showing you guys today. Mainly, we did do some nomad and some of corpo, but we have not completed those yet as we are reviewing the game. Like I said, I wanted to try and show you guys my first and second play through the game and a general review of what's going on. Tons of great customization options. You can customate your genitals. If you're a guy, you can also have a vagina. If you're a guy and want to have a giant schlong, you can do that. Or you can be a Ken doll. That's where this game, I guess, is sort of different. You don't really see any nudity besides determining on your own. During the main quest, you see some boobs in the very beginning. Other than that, there's no other real nudity unless you choose to pursue romantic paths. The game does start out beautifully as a ray tracing piece of art, and I think, in my personal opinion, the graphics kind of feel not the same as it is in the beginning of the game, but it feels really good, really reactive. My only downside throughout the whole campaign, you cannot customize your character, which is very dumb. Very weird scenario, and I think that was probably one of the biggest receptions of the game so far. The first mission in the Street Kid has you taking the roles of V. I think you're V no matter what, and he asks you to help him getting out of debt, and you can talk to a guy and get him out of a debt, and he asks you to go do a quest for you.
Knew I could count on you. It's Kirk. I owe him. Don't pay by tomorrow, said he'd bust my legs. He don't joke about that stuff. Got cartels in his corner.
You in it with Kirk? Every man, woman, and rat in Haywood knows he's a fucking shark.
Get used to the dialogue and looking at characters for majority of this game. In terms of gameplay to dialogue ratio, I would say about 80% of this game is dialogue, and that is it. Combat, it seems to be a very second nature and a very backseat in this game. It looks fucking amazing, though. I will say visually, it ran my computer very hard. I have a Ryzen 5 5600X and a 2070 Super, and this game struggled to run max settings at 1440p with ray tracing enabled. I did disable the ray tracing for the remainder of this review to enable frame rates that aren't like a PowerPoint presentation. All right, let's see what a difference the ray tracing actually looks like. I don't really see that big of a difference personally. Maybe a little bit, but I'm going to leave them off because ray tracing just destroys my graphics.
Want to talk?
V, been a while? Spin it. What you need?
Pepe asked me to talk you up.
What, he too shy to hand over the Yetis himself? Tell him I don't bite. Not yet.
Your first little quest is to be stealing a really expensive car. You'll be paying your friend's debt as well as getting some money in your pocket for good measure. This is something that's kind of cool within Cyberpunk, is that there's always one kind of outcome is trying to help you and your friends out. Not just one for all, which is kind of cool. Or you can go the badass route and do it just for yourself. This pastor guy here, and the riding mechanics is something that in Cyberpunk will happen all the time. So starting off, you might as well get used to it. These riding sequences feel very unnatural. Sometimes they just bug out. You'll run into stuff and kind of ruin the immersion a little bit in certain aspects or whatever. It just feels sometimes unnatural. This is also where you start to get a feel of what it is to live on those streets of Night City.
You're Patty, so listen up. Get the fuck out of Vista. Pull your boys off the street. I'll give you the Glen. Done deal. No more restless nights. See how generous I can be? Well, Patty, what's
One
it
more
gonna be?
fucking word.
Stay out of this. I don't know you.
And I don't know you, which means you're worth shit around here and capable of even less.
You then go to the parking garage to get the car, and this is where Night City, you think it's a straightforward, easy mission, which I will say a lot of the missions in this game are pretty straightforward. You go there, you have a whole bunch of dialogue, you talk to the person, go here, do some more dialogue choices, and do some little investigative work, and then that's it. That's the end of the mission. There's not a lot of combat in these missions. I will say that's the one downside in my personal opinion. But if we look to our left, while the car is starting to start up, there's Jackie Wells. He is the main character we've seen in the story trailers, and he's putting a gun in our face.
Get the fuck
Okay.
out.
Easy.
Nothing personal, compa. Just biz.
What are you doing?
¿Qué chingados?
What the fuck? What the fuck is that?
Fuck.
Damn. Died already. Very beginning of the game, unfortunately. And you end up being woken up right next to Jackie Wells, where you guys talk about your feelings and just become partners in crime. And unfortunately, this is the way every single storyline for CD Projekt Red's Cyberpunk 2077 starts out. Whether you're a nomad, a corpo, or a street kid, you always somehow find your way into being with Jackie Wells. And I wish there was a different character for each side, but I mean, all of the storylines make sense. We'll quickly breeze over those here very shortly after we do the intramatic cutscene with Jackie and V. So let's go quickly over the Nomad one. You come into town, a Sheriff Bard parades you. You run into Jackie Wells, who is going to help you carry this contraband through into Night City, as that's what you're sent to Night City to do. You then take it to the country line and try and bringing in the contraband, which actually you have a plan set in motion that actually works for the most part. Go inside, you bribe the guy with some credits that Jackie gives you within starting. This seems to be one of the least delivering starters out of the three, personally, in my opinion. Arasaka attacks you over having obviously stolen contraband. You're going to shoot all of these guys out of here with this revolver you have pretty much unlimited ammo for, blowing up all the vehicles in your way in a very cinematic masterpiece fashion way. And this is probably the one that's most action-packed, honestly, than the starting three, in my personal opinion. But it just seems to be the one that's the least, like, down-to-earth or, like, less gratifying than all of them. You open the contraband for it to be a damn iguana. I'm not making this shit up. It's an iguana. They're attacking you for an iguana. Let's hope the Corpo one's better. So now we move on to the Corpo side of things. We're vomiting into a sink, and the first call we get from Jackie Wells? We're in a Corpo, and the first person we get a call from is Jackie. I mean, you're in a big-ass company that runs the world, and the first person you do is a common street thug of Jackie Wells. Basically, you go to an office, see a bunch of people get killed for no reason that are on some sort of Air Force thing, and basically, this guy forces you to put a hit on someone that works in the office that's also a millionaire that's apparently attacking him for a bunch of other stuff that he's crooked for, as he just killed a whole entire committee worth of people right in front of you. He's not trying to be really committed. You call Jackie, of course, because he's the only person you can even count on, which still, like I said, still doesn't make a whole lot of sense. This is where I wish other characters would have been brought into. You get some of the longest writing sequences in the game or in these stupid AVs. Really annoying. But the way you get off this AV is a badass.
You crushed us. Jesus Christ. Okay, no, hey, we ain't looking for no beef with you.
And then you disrespect LeBron James with this full court swisheruno. Actually, with the toilet bowl. And then you're talking with Jackie. You're trying to get the thing set up. You give him the money, whatnot. And then, obviously, something has to go wrong because you have to fall in line with the same storyline as the other three factions. So the Aristata guys come in that you're trying to put a hit on. They're attacking you for the same person. You basically have Jackie comforting you. And the first thing you're going to do after having lost all of your money, your job, your nice apartment, your nice car, is...
Hello there, Night City! Stanley here with you, and we got another day ahead of us in this city of dreams. Ooh, I love this town. Love it like you might love a mother who popped you out on the steps of an orphanage once and now stops you to ask if you got a smoke for her. Every new day here means 100 new arrivals, but only half these consoles survive a year, and that's if it's a good one. And why do these peeps come to NC? Well, to be street samurai like Morgan, Blackhand, and Waylon Boa Boa. The greater the risk, The bigger the bounty, kids. Or so they say. But you can only be a major league player for so long. The faster you live, the faster you burn out. If you don't get a bullet to the brain first. NC's Legends. Know where you'll find most of them? The graveyard. Matters not where you're from. Matters not where you start. What matters here is the walk you walk. In Night City. The city of dreams.
This is where we can start to dive in and stay away from the traditional reviewing mission by mission basis. We'll bring up some certain missions if they bring up a certain type of flair, but mainly we're going to be starting to talk about the combat mechanics, which are primarily stealth and just guns blazing. There's not really much in between. Melee combat, if you guys have seen in my previous video, Cyberpunk melee combat in a nutshell, it's pretty bad if you don't upgrade it. But the problem is the game works to where if you attack enemies with a certain type of weapon, you'll gain skill points with those certain weapons. So if you don't use melee weapons, you're not necessarily going to gain more skill points in the melee weapons if you never use them. So you will be hitting people like with a katana, like a stick pole for a long time. Guns start to become available and a lot easier the further you get into the game, and personally, the best way to get ammo, money, and other things are to progress with side quests while doing the main story. So complete as many side quests as you can while doing the main story. That's what I definitely recommend doing in the game while playing it at the exact same time. The main story is very good. I will say some of the side missions outpace the main story by a mile. The first act is basically you and Jackie just trying to get your big break and become the best street thugs you possibly can be, getting the most money, other things in that kind of nature. This is where the game really starts to develop a very one-on-one relationship with Jackie Wells as you're coming up from the streets and starting to make a name for yourself. The more the game progresses, the more people will actually start contacting you instead of you contacting other fixers, which are basically mob bosses essentially in certain types of ways. There's many things that this game succeeds in, but in terms of bugs, there is a lot of them. Visual bugs. This game could run very, very hard on a PC. If it barely runs on a $1,300 computer, it's probably $1,300 computer, it's probably not going to run very well on a $300 to $500 console. I will say the Series X does happen to run this game at a pretty well resolution, although it is in backwards compatibility. There is no Series X or PlayStation 5 versions yet, so you're getting the most unstable version on consoles. If you can, I would play on PC, as all of this gameplay and all of my experiences are based on PC. Although I have played quite a bit of the console versions of Cyberpunk 2077 on the Xbox and base OG PS4 versions, and I gotta say, the Xbox actually somehow manages to win in terms of optimization compared to the PlayStation, even in OG after a bit. With the Ryzen 5 5600X and a 2070 Super, this game ran pretty phenomenally, over 60 FPS at 1080p ultra settings, with ray tracing turned off and DLSS turned on. I will have some setting optimization inside on a YouTube video that will be coming out later, which is probably out by now, but by the time this review is, so check it out if you guys are having frame rate dips or unoptimization issues. Make sure you download the latest NVIDIA or Radeon softwares to make this game look and run the best. Without drivers, this game is dog shit. So, how is the gunplay? It feels very good. The gunplay, you have pistols, SMGs, shotguns, assault rifles, and obviously you have other things like melee combat, blunt, and sharp weapons. And like I said, perk trees don't really necessarily make guns that much better. It doesn't really feel like there's a level cap on main story missions. Side quests, on the other hand, during the beginning of this game, you will be like The Witcher 3, where in the beginning of the game, you'll feel like you'll be getting level 15 quests, where at level 3 or 4, you're not going to be able to complete, even if you try the absolute hardest. You could do non-combat, non-kill takedowns, or kill takedowns. Why there's even these two options? Because killing and non-killing don't even benefactor each other. I guess in terms of gaining skills it does, but in terms of like end game progression, like a Dishonored game, there's none of that here that I'm aware of. Pistols feel pretty good. They're mainly better than ARs at the beginning of the game, but getting more levels with ARs and shotguns, they seem to be the best things for killing people. Although, keep on to the pistols, because you'll be getting some pretty cool revolvers that have 20-round mags that do electric and fire damage that are just absolutely insane. So, don't diss out pistols. They're pretty damn good. Like I said, melee combat is kind of trash. I didn't really use it pretty much at all during this entire game, as sometimes running to the opponent, even on hard mode, which is what I experienced the game on, could kill you in a pretty decent amount of shots. That's one thing. The AI in this game is not very good at combat. It kind of just sometimes works and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes the enemies feels like the situation is hard, and sometimes the AI enemies don't even know what the hell is going on sometimes. That is probably one of the biggest downsides of Cyberpunk 2077, is when it comes down to combat, the very few combat moments I felt like there was in the game, it sometimes can be not fulfilling depending on the AI. Although, I will say, visually, guns shoot pretty well. The recoil feels somewhat realistic in a futuristic setting. I wish I saw more diverse weapon choices. It feels like there's only probably 4 or 5 different pistols, only 4 or 5 different ARs, if that can even say that. Like, I've only seen maybe 2 or 3 different sniper rifles, 1 or 2 or 3 different shotguns. There's not a whole lot of weapon variety. It feels like this game mainly puts a center stage of story and dialogue development versus combat decisions. And that probably is what CD Projekt Red even inclined when they started developing the game. But let's start talking about some of the smaller things, which are just details, which this game seems to be riddled with. The city of Cyberpunk 2077 looks and seems fantastic. Very well crafted and very designed, in down to the T of even having moving sidewalks when the light turns red. Although certain things like crime scenes, you can just go over here and teabag dead bodies, with this policeman watching me do it in front of him. It's kind of some things like this that kind of seems like its competitors like Grand Theft Auto take a little bit more in term depth-wise, seem to be a little bit more competitive with more immersion. You also have kids in this game, which unfortunately you can't kill like a Fallout New Vegas mod. This is all some things that add to the immersion of Cyberpunk, which can be immediately broken by a few things. Pulling guns in front of NPCs just feels like they don't even care that you're having a shotgun out or a handgun, and resulting in shooting a gun in the mid-street while looking around automatically despawns anybody that's nearby. This is just a bug, but this happens anytime, anywhere, with as many civilians as possible. Not sure why this happens, but they just disappear, and the ones that don't really kind of lose the immersion just as bad. Driving also kind of feels great in this game. It's not the best polished. It's kind of crunchy. The cars don't get as damaged as much as I would want them to, but driving in first person and some of the cars in this game just feel alive and good. One downside is while you're driving, lights that are red, as soon as you get close to them, automatically turn green. Seems slightly insignificant, but something that I just had to notice. Immersion breaking again, running over pedestrians and getting cops on you. Now, in Night City, cops are very busy, I understand. But for you to murder a bunch of people in front of you, cops start shooting at you. You can run one down and have his buddy trying to avenge him. To lose cops in this game, all you have to do is shut up and drive. That's no pun intended. Driving as slow as possible. These cops have no chance to catch me. It feels like this game is just losing immersion with every chance that I get to try and be immersed outside of quest combat in this game. There seems to be not a lot of that in Cyberpunk 2077. There's some cool things like driving that makes the game feel good, but having cars stopped on the side of the road, they don't try and go around them. They stand there and just wait. There's kind of more immersion bending. Even Grand Theft Auto 3, if you parked a car in front of them, cars would go around a parked car in the middle of the road. This is just something that kind of takes more immersion out of the gameplay. Like I said, some of the cars in Cyberpunk 2077 are just plain badass. This one that I'm driving around here is a car that I just stole, and it's pretty cool. You can't really claim vehicles for your own. You have to buy them or acquire them through other means. Sometimes you can unlock cars that are in secret areas, but for the most part you have to buy them, and their cars are unfortunately not cheap. And to gain money in this game isn't very fast. You have to do a lot of side quests. I've done mainly all the main story side quest missions, and I only have about $150,000 as the recording of this segment of the video. Driving these cars feel immersive, feel good, and look cool while being in first person. Although driving can be a little wonky sometimes, and motorcycles are just outright broken.
So motorcycles, they just bounce around, but I will say graphical setting looks amazing. I am running this game at 2560 by 1080 widescreen ultimate resolution. The side missions that you can do are pretty good, but some of these, like the racing, they just are really weird. Vehicles will spawn right behind you. They're shooting the entire time. There's also fighting, which seems to be the only like real two like little side mission like activities you can do in the game. And fighting is just repetitive, punching and dodging the same thing. I even upgraded my melee pretty high, and I could not finish the final fight without getting my ass completely kicked over and over and over again. That's one of the things in the downside that I would say about these side quests, that they're just almost impossible or just very hard. The game feels alive and plays pretty well, honestly, on PC, although console, we've already said, is pretty trash. We do see that the city is alive, detailed, cutscene and dialogue choices are very apparent, but look very good. I will say graphically, this game is a engineering marvel, making Crisis look like even worse than old school days. Graphical settings are more inclined. This is going to be the benchmarking game of choice for high-end graphics cards, 100%. Like I said, the atmosphere, the city is just phenomenal. I can't stress that enough. Details, combat seems to be a little on the weak side, but this game is mainly story implemented, I think. And stealth feels very weak. The animations are awful for takedowns and kills. You can't kill enemies stealthily with like melee weapons, which is kind of dumb in my personal opinion. I think that's pretty stupid. But you can walk around with a weapon and silenced and shoot them. As long as they die within the first shot, you'll be good. So let's talk about the story and some of the spoilers here. First, you get enough credit to run with Dax, which is one of the better gig boss setup guys that you have. You end up going with Jackie. He ends up going to send you on this quest to help out and get a chip, as well as, like I said, cutscenes and dialogue seem to be the best voice acting in a game for a long time. You send to the Arasaka Tower to find this engram, and you see these two people talking, which is actually the people that are the head of the Arasaka brand, and he ends up choking out his dad and killing him. This is where the game really starts to spike up in terms of dialogue, story progression, and everything from here feels like it's at its peak. But in my personal opinion, ever since this point, the story starts to dwindle lower and lower. That's just my personal opinion. From here, it felt like it was one of the highest parts of the entire story, in my personal opinion. The game just started to just start to fundamental and fumble as the game went on. And to find out that he framed someone for murdering his dad, and you and Jackie have the engram, and you are going to get outside of Arasaka Tower. You and Jackie are freaking out and trying to escape from Arasaka Tower, and you're on the edge of the building. This is where the game really shows off. Even during the rain, this game looks beautiful. And of course, you guys are spotted, and you guys jump. You guys fall through. You take pretty much no damage, but of course Jackie takes more damage than you, of course, and he ends up putting the engram in his head. The only way that he can stop the temperature from basically destroying itself, overheating itself, and he puts it inside of his own self to try and save and preserve the engram. You, of course, have to get outside of Arasaka Tower still and shoot your way out in a fiery blaze of glory. Although inside this clip here, a guy was stuck on my screen the whole time throughout this entire fight. So we get outside. Jackie is starting to feel a little queasy, starting like he's going to die. Something goes through, and Jackie ends up dying during this scene. I'll just let you guys see this amazing masterpiece in full depth.
It's gonna be all right, huh? You'll see Misty, your mom, everyone you love. Jackie, don't close your eyes.
Misty, I know. You always know. That biochip. Hold on to it. For me.
So yeah, that was a little immersion breaking with Jackie holding a gun, pulling it out of his head. That was obviously a visual glitch, and it kind of ruined the moment for me from there. Now you go back to Dax's apartment, tell him that you have the engram in your head. He's basically upset that because you botched the mission a little bit. Obviously, I would be a little upset if you put a high-profile case here too. He punches you and betrays you, obviously. I kind of saw this coming from a mile away. But this starts off the beginning of Cyberpunk's descent into what I would recall some of the most repetitive shit inside of the missions.
Forward for me.
Shoots you in the head and starts out Cyberpunk 2077. This is where the game starts to develop the new plot for the very end of the game from here on out. And from here, we'll talk about some other specifics and stuff like that. So basically, now what we're going to be seeing is a little cutscene flashback for somebody. You're not exactly sure yet, but come to find out, Johnny Silverhand or Keanu Reeves. You were actually starting to live out his memories and why Johnny is inside whatever is going on. You don't know what's going on, but he's inside the engram that you put inside your head. Now, this is obviously some things that kind of start to develop the game a little bit. You find out that he's a rock star. He's good at playing guitar, which I like that. I'm big into the rock and roll type of thing that they started fundamentally putting behind Cyberpunk 2077, although it kind of feels outdated for how old this stuff is. It feels like this should have been in the 80s instead of the 2027 or 2077. You find Rogue, which then you guys go to attack Arasaka Tower, which is something that I did not expect to be happening at this point, but it is 100% happening right now. So from here, you were assigned your fate with Atom Smasher. He seems to be probably the only villain in the game, although you don't really deal with him at all during the main story of Cyberpunk 2077. It's here that this is about 50 years in the past, living inside of Johnny's memories. You try and escape from Arasaka Tower with Rogue. You grab onto her. She can't pull you up, although she looks like she purposely lets you go. find out later in the game. That's something that you will find out when you watch another video of mine coming very soon here. But Adam Smasher basically knows that you are defeated and kicks your gun away and basically is about to kill you.
But end you someday.
And for whatever reason, now Johnny's all the way away. He blew up an atom bomb inside of Arasaka Tower. And they basically say it's a fate worse than death to put his memories and feelings and character inside this thing called an engram, basically a shard that holds his consciousness and feelings and all this stuff. Not really well explained, but it is kind of weird and kind of the cool thing. So the thing that they did, they put it inside of a little chip, and then they put that inside of your head. Now, I'm not sure why Arasaka Tower had it in his son's room. Doesn't really explain that very much. But the engram now will show you reflections of Johnny Silverhand, a.k.a. Keanu Reeves. At first, it starts off to be kind of an asshole, basically telling you that, you know, to do smokes and to follow his rules. He's taking over your body, that kind of thing. And it all kind of goes pretty quick, and it really doesn't fully explain what's going on with you and Johnny till probably later in the game with more missions and stuff. And honestly, that's the whole plot of this game, getting Johnny out of your head. It's not as simple as ripping the engram out of the back of your head. It's more of the lines of you have to do it a certain way, and no one really has the technology or power to do that. That is the main plot, is getting Johnny outside of your head, because he controls some of your actions and is taking over your body and slowly killing you. So eventually you meet back up with Rogue inside of Night City. It basically you have an idea to take down this guy that might have an idea on how to take the engram and memories outside of your head, which actually puts you into a partnership with Pan Am, which is actually a failed quest that Rogue sent her to do and she could not do completely. You help her, and actually she can be a partner or a love interest later in the game, which is actually something that I actually kind of felt like it was more of a Mass Effect feeling more than, you know, Cyberpunk 2077. She ends up helping you capture this guy that has the idea to possibly get this engram out of your head. You drive back to the hotel, and you talk to him, thinking that he's going to be able to easily help you out. You think that this is probably the turning point in the game. Come to find out, he doesn't know anything, or he says he doesn't know anything. Although, later in the game, he does know a thing or two about certain things. I don't know why he couldn't get it out of these dialogue choices right here. He just says that he can't do it, but later in the game, he does do it. So why couldn't he just do it here instead of wait till the end of the game? Doesn't really make much sense to me.
But watch out, Suit's getting ready to talk your head off.
You basically end up playing the game to Toromura. Actually, he tries to help you talk to the guy that killed his father's sister, and he end up having to attack his bodyguard. From here is where pretty much the end game is. This is probably the last interesting mission that I really found inside of Cyberpunk 2077. In terms of main story, there wasn't very much missions that really grappled me to keep on playing the game, besides wanting to finish the story and be able to play the rest of the game to 100% completion. You end up meeting with his sister, trying to convince her to listen to you about her brother killing their dad, and she just seems to not buy it. It doesn't want to believe you, but in the end, she ends up believing you after Toromura dies. But actually, there's an alternative motive where Tenemura can actually live. So that's one of the things I would recommend saving before this point happens. Getting inside this apartment building, he ends up dying for me, and ends up kind of changing one thing to the ending. But it ends the same exact way no matter what. So don't worry about if Tenemura dies. It's not really a huge benefactor. It doesn't change the ending that much differently at all, to be honest with you. Basically, you go to meet the girl now. This is basically the end game. It tells you that there is no returning from here, and all quests will no longer be able to be completed until you finish the game. Basically, you come back basically telling you that you're too sick, it's hard to move, and that you need to take matters into your own hands. That's basically the part here. It gives you 2 pills and a gun. There is only 6 endings, and I'm only going to be talking about the one I got on my first playthrough and some of the other ones later in the video. But if you guys do want to see the full endings for all of the endings inside of Cyberpunk 2077, there is going to be a video in the description that tells you all the different endings, what happens, a breakdown of certain things. Just about an hour long. I spent a lot of time on this. Right here on the balcony is basically where you can make the different choices, and I definitely recommend increasing your relationship with Pan Am, as I feel like that's the best ending. The ending where I chose was Arasaka, which you have 2 different endings, and both of them are all right. You basically only have choices if you unlock them. So play the side missions after this point, and you will get the best possible endings from here. There is one that's really dumb, and you kill yourself. That's it. And everyone starts being depressing and shit. It's very sad. It's probably the worst ending you can get in the game. So I chose the Arasaka one. This is basically one of the most boring ones because you go with her and the guy that's going to take the engram out of your head, and you fly right through a building here, which you'll see in just a second. And you can tell they're even bored flying to the end part of the mission here. Fly right through the wall. And from here, you're basically just trying to convince everyone, which then you find out that their dad is not dead. He has his physical memories inside of a computer, just like Johnny Silverhand. Kind of weird. The other different variants of taking Pan Am or Johnny's alternative ending methods never really show this part, and I really wish they would have, because this part is actually very interesting. But this ending and Johnny's and Pan Am's endings, definitely recommend you to go the ulterior motive to find the different endings. I really like that they had different endings, but in reality, they all don't really feel different. Getting to a certain part on either one of the endings, you get attacked by Adam Smasher. You have an opportunity to kill this guy and take revenge for Johnny Silverhand getting mangled and attacked, beaten up, and killed by this guy, essentially. Although he doesn't technically die by Adam Smasher, Johnny Silverhand really wants this fucker dead, and there's good reasons for it. You have the opportunity for Adam Smasher to live, which I personally have never done yet. I don't think there's really any different endings if Adam Smasher lives or not. I just killed him every single time. It feels really good to kill a super overpowered robot. This mission part isn't very hard, although when I did replay through it, I did have some difficulties when I did it on the other ending. So one thing to note, it's not a walk in the park, but it is. After you kill Adam Smasher, you finally make it to his brother that killed his father, and basically have a long talk about power and taking over, and basically this is going to be the end for the Arasaka group. This is one of the things that doesn't really feel emotional, drags on too long, and is not really that fulfilling, especially because after this is where you're finally going to get rid of that pesky damn engram and get rid of Johnny Silverhand. Although, throughout playing the game, depending on the other endings, it feels like Johnny is more of a companion than a burden compared to these endings during the Arasaka group power. Once you go through here, you go through the ending here, and it's basically just a digitalized pyramid with a walk of shame to the ending, depending on which path you chose. This is kind of weird. You fall asleep. You basically have a choice in the matter of which way you want to go about things. And you talk with Johnny, talk to him. You can either be pissed off at him, get rid of him, talk him down. Basically, he kind of scolds you for whatever ending you do choose. You walk to the very end, and it begins. He walks away, and then it starts the ending for Johnny. Basically, you come back, Johnny's out of your head, but you feel like all of your feelings are gone. Everything seems purple, and you basically are in recovery, and you repeat the same damn steps every time. You roll a Rubik's Cube, you run on the treadmill, you answer some questions, basically trying to get whatever reason back. And honestly, this part just felt unnecessary. It feels like it's just trying to drive you mad And this probably just shows how really corrupt and terrible Arasaka Group is. So, you finally get through all of your stupid trials, you wake up, and depending on if you save Totomura or not, he will be standing here instead of the dude that pretended like he didn't know anything, but somehow did know everything. And basically, after all of your work, trying to figure out how to take the engram out of your head, he basically tells you, no matter what, you're going to die in 6 months. Basically gives you a chance at another life by putting your consciousness inside of an engram and letting you take a new body in the future. This is the only way that you can live truly out of all of the endings in the game, which kind of feel like, I don't know, it feels less fulfilling. The one in Pan Am's story, at least it seems like you do live a happily ever after, although you most likely probably die because you're still given 6 months to live no matter what ending. Here you can also refuse to keep your engram and live forever. And basically all this does is you go back to, it gets you on a shuttle going back down to Earth, and that's it. It's a very faultful and very kind of crappy ending, but there's 2 different decisions whether or not you don't want to continue to join the Arasaka Group. I wish there was a better one when you refuse to go back to Earth, allowing you to play one final mission. So that's Cyberpunk 2077. The gameplay is actually pretty good graphically and city-wise.
Oh, wow, the first third-person cutscene I've had all game. But in reality, this would be me. I'd want to live if I didn't want to die and went through all this shit to live. The fuck is that little thing to the right? Oh shit, my face can't move away. I mean, that was probably, I mean, it was an alright ending. Kind of fucking out there, I guess. But you leave everything behind. You have a choice of fucking either living or dying. That's pretty much it. You become the thing you sought to destroy, or you die.
So gameplay-wise, this game is pretty fun. Gunplay seems to be pretty good. The melee combat can be rewarding, but you have to sink a lot of skill trees into it to be able to be actually good. The story could be improved. It feels like it's not as polished as the rest of the game is. Character customization is pretty decent, although it's kind of weird that they even allow you to customize your genitalia, which doesn't really feel like it needs to be necessary in a game where you don't even really see your genitalia. Kind of weird, I should say. One of the things that I will say is that this game is vibrant. One of the best looking games I've ever played on PC, I should say. As console tends to be this utter, disgusting FPS malware virus that just does not play very well. And when it does play in terms of shooting, the game is phenomenal. Story-wise, I feel like this game kind of fell flat and was too ambitious for its own good. There's a lot of things that break the immersion, like being able to just shoot a gun and all the enemies just disappear. Police just are not even trying to attack you. Some of the gang fights are just too over the top, throwing and shooting grenades all over the place. But when the game works, it works. The bugs, glitches don't really help out. But the game, it is really fantastic, I will say. I wasn't really a fan of the story. It wasn't anything really super amazing, but it was a story. And to be honest, I really wish they would have put a villain in that was a little bit more intimidating, that really meant more to the story than all the other villains they could have put in there. I do say I wish Jackie would have been able to live longer, or maybe see an alternative ending where instead of you taking the engram, Jackie takes the engram. Because technically you do die, and engram does repair you. So to see Jackie taken over instead of you being taken over is one thing that I wish you would have done. And like I said, in the very beginning, the story starts off strong and then slowly takes a downhill flop up until the ending, which depends on how good the ending is, determined on you. That is my review for Cyberpunk 2077. I give this an 8 out of 10. Lots of high ambitiousness for it to kind of fall flat on its head, especially with the bugs, the glitches, the console ports being destroyed, not even worth any attempt at playing it until the newer next-gen releases come out, where the game will be playable and look a lot better. So, guys, what did you like of Cyberpunk 2077? Check out the other endings if you're really intrigued to see what kind of goodness appears in the final games of Cyberpunk 2077. I had a great time. Total play time, I got about 42 hours in the about week it's been out. So, guys, appreciate you guys watching, and I will see you guys in the very next game review, where hopefully we'll be even immersed more than Cyberpunk 2077. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.
Letters not